Welcome to the Unlearning Podcast. Today, our topic is the soul of money. And we have with us a phenomenal leader who just keen insight is about to drop some gems on finances and how we can get ourselves together financially, Jonathan Thomas. So welcome to the show.
No, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. We divine timing, right? So we kind of missed each other like two passing ships, but we got it together, and I think it's gonna be a great conversation. Jonathan Thomas has nearly a decade of experience in financial services. He's been able to lead at several top banking institutions as well as credit unions. With keen insight and a practical plan, Jonathan has helped people manage their money, decrease their debt, and save to invest. While still managing his career, he focuses his time on Money Talks, a Facebook group and YouTube channel helping people understand their budget, learn about credit to pay off debt and improve their credit scores, and learn specifics on investing to be able to save and participate in the stock market and real estate for the long term. Jonathan holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from Stowe State University and his MBA from Webster University. He's a loving and dedicated husband and father, living a beautiful life residing in Charlotte, North Carolina. So, what is it? Well, I've spoken and I've given your bio. Is there anything else you want to say about who you are and what you do in your own words?
I mean, I just help people have money. It's just, you gotta have money. I don't care where you go. I help you have money. And as long as you have money, like we were speaking kind of the pre-show, it doesn't really matter. The chaos is going to go on. You're going to be okay.
Yeah. What is it that you would want, or one thing you'd want listeners to know about you, besides your expertise in helping us get money?
I work hard, but if I wish I could give everybody everything I know, I really wish I could, but unfortunately I can't. You guys can't see everything. You guys can't have that zest to go learn everything. But if you're truly investing, it will change your life. It will change everything you do in your life. And from a faith-based perspective, the love of money is the root of all evil, but money itself is really not evil. And in times like this, where, I knew it will get bad. I saw the trends. I'm very aware and acutely aware. It's one of those things that when you're seeing people panic and when you're seeing people, because social media allows you to do this and see people's lives, and they're concerned about how they're going to pay their bills, or there's even people where I got to put my house on the market now. They're doing a lot of different things that I'm like, oh, this could have been prevented if you just would have had the money. No, you don't know when your time may be up at a particular employer. Okay, cool. I'm not saying that. I'm not even trying to get you to predict that. That'd be great if you do. But having money first protects you. And then the second thing is, for me to be able to love on somebody, for me to be able to support somebody, for me to be able to uplift and impact someone in this America, I'm going to need money to do that.
Yeah. How did you get to this point of, because a lot of times I think when we say money, either from a faith-based perspective of money is the root of all evil, and then we don't talk about money. We don't talk to our families or our children about money. And sometimes I think there's like this shame attached if I talk to you about money or my current situation. So how did you get to this point of like, let's talk about it?
Well, the funny thing is, it always starts that if you listen to any personal finance person, they'll say, hey, we don't have money conversations. The fact is, people have money conversations all throughout. Like every culture, even the Black culture, we don't talk about Black people be talking about their money. The problem is there's no wisdom in what they're speaking about. You know what I mean? They're speaking about things that happened to them, how they made a decision. You're looking at, oh, Susie got a new car. Susie got a new job. Okay, cool. Well, how did you get that truck? I like that truck. How do I get that? And she might have just went into the dealership and paid for it. and got a loan, and maybe she got declined by a couple people, but somebody eventually was able to approve her. That
Yeah.
is no indication that she made a good financial decision for her life. All it says was, I got a job and I was able to get this car. But if you're in a recessionary time and you're noticing that, hey, this person always talking about money, I made more not working in the workforce in 2020 than I did or equal to than I did the year before in 2019. And
Yeah.
I didn't work half the year. I
Mm.
didn't touch my emergency fund. Why was I able to do that? There are things that happen. Yeah, I was able to take advantage of, but that's still me managing my money correctly. I still
Yeah.
put myself in a position to be strong financially. And oftentimes people don't understand what their strength is until basically you go ask somebody for some money. You think you're doing good, and then you're like, oh, I want to buy a car. Or the big one is, I want to buy a house. And
Yeah.
now, you be like, oh, I thought I could afford it. I could pay this rent. Yeah, but you don't have no money in the bank. You haven't been on your job long enough. You realize that the mortgage is also taxes and insurance. And because you
Mm.
need a down payment for the home, as well as you got to pay the closing costs. And yeah, you can have programs or whatever, but you still need to qualify. You're
Yeah.
asking somebody for their money. If
Yeah.
somebody asked me for money, see, we come from, if somebody asked me for money when I was 17, 18, I would just give it to them. I didn't
Yeah.
give them no type of qualification. And I was wrong in my head. I
Yeah.
was wrong to tell them no because I had it until I
Yeah.
got to start learning about money. And then my sister, I remember she asked me for some money. I was like, well, what's this for? Do I really want to help
Mm.
you? And once I got to a point of, hey, I'm only giving it to you. I'm not going to lend it to you. But my sister was in that particular scenario. She was prideful. She's like, no, I'm going to give it back to you. I'm like, okay, well, when you going to do it?
Yeah.
She did it, took her time, whatever. But the point is, we get money and we ask people for money and we give money to people who are not qualified to take it. They're
Mm.
not going to pay you back. They're not qualified to borrow because if they were qualified to borrow, guess what? They can go get it from the bank and not ask you and leave you completely out of it.
Wow.
So
Wow.
the money conversation, I did think that when, again, as I was starting to study, but I've been blessed to have this curiosity of, why aren't we having a conversation and what are we doing? We don't know. We're having
Yeah.
a conversation. No one, I can walk up to any stranger on the street. Hey, you think you should save for your kid? Yeah. And I'm putting money. I see it all the time. I saw it all the time in the bank. I'm like, well, why do they have savings accounts with $2,000 and $3,000? May not be much, but if they invested this money, it would be $20,000, $30,000. Is
Mm.
that going to pay for your whole tuition? No, but it's going to put a dent in it. You give somebody
Mm.
$30,000 that they have to work for, it's going to help. Everything ain't a
Yeah.
$1 million play, but the money conversations we're having are not full of wisdom to properly understand how you should make the decision. Work, you
Yeah.
want to buy something, work and go buy it. There was
Yeah.
nothing in there that said, hey, once you start working, you really need to save your money. Well, why am I saving my money? Well, things will come up, first of all. And then second, there's going to come a point where you're going to want to buy something. You're going to want
Yeah.
to buy something that's expensive. And in order to buy it, you're going to need to qualify. And typically, you're going to need some savings. Okay, maybe it's not that. Maybe you're that type of person who, at 16, you knew you didn't even like working. You knew you didn't like work.
Yeah.
So is there a way to get out of work? Initially, it's, yeah, when I get 60, 65. But what if I'm telling you, oh, I'm 16. Well, you could be done financially free by 35, 40.
Mm. Yeah.
And no one can tell me it's an easier time to save and invest than 16 through 25 when you don't likely have kids, when you don't likely have responsibility that a person at 35, you got a pretty full life. And at 30,
Yeah.
35, I got parents and you got different things tugging at you, rightfully so. But in that stage is usually the best. And also, you can invest the least and get the most impact.
Mm. Yeah. So can we
So
talk? Oh, go ahead. I'm
yeah,
sorry. So you have said a lot to unpack right now, but which is good, which is great. I'm just thinking about, especially in the Black community, where we tend to be more borrowers than we are actual lenders of things. And to what you said, like, it's often chasing behind, or we've been conditioned to believe that we got to chase behind high status things and pay for other people's names rather than our own. What is the mind, in order for us to begin to think that way? Like, what is the mindset that we should have? All people, but Black people especially. Like, what's a shift in our mindset that's going to help us to begin to say, okay, yeah, I can save at any age, really?
Well, I mean, the first thing for me was, well, I was even say the first thing because I like most people, I moved out when I was 17, 18, and then I had to move back home because I didn't properly vet, or I didn't even know to properly vet the roommate that I had, and I'm giving him the rent and find out that the rent's not being paid. And so I had to move back. And so I had one of those scenarios. But when I moved back, I stayed for a while. Obviously, that put a dampen on the dating life. But it also, when I got ready to move out again and I had another roommate, I realized, hey, I don't have to do him like I was done. I can actually teach him what should be done. So when the first time we paid rent, I'm like, well, it's the first of the month. Or no, I think it was the second month. He was like, well, you didn't say nothing to me. I was like, well, rent's due on the first. He was like, well, you didn't text me. I was like, no, you don't know rent's due on the first. Like, that's a date that's not changing. You can, and I was baffled. I'm like, who don't know rent's due on the first? But he's never been in that situation. And so that was a learning process for him that, hey, okay, let me do this. He would put the money in there and we'll take care of it. But to the actual question is, people have to understand anything you value has to be, I wouldn't say minimal, but it can't be in excess. So we excess everybody, as you know what I mean, no culture barrier at all. It's just we value fun, lifestyle, all that. Too much fun, lifestyle, all those things. You're not going to have the money to be able to save for your future. And for me, I realized at 20, 25, I was leaving education and I was beginning to look for a career job from college, and I was basically unemployed. And I'm like, okay, I got this apartment. How can I not go back to my mom's house? And so I realized I don't have savings. You know what I mean? I just don't have it. I was blessed because that was a 3-month span of time and I was fine. I had different resources I could take advantage of to pay the rent and all that. But that was my game plan, number one. As soon as I started in the banking career, hey, I need to save money. I need to save money until I reach an amount that I'm like, okay, based on my bills, I can last 10 months, 15 months, however, whatever makes me comfortable, but I can last on my own. But I knew one thing, I could not go home. I just couldn't. I had my feel. I'm like, it's expensive to go back and forth, moving in and out, but I'm 25. If I haven't figured it out by now, my mom's not going to bail me out this situation. And for many of us, no one's coming to hand you a $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 check to start your life. So because of that, I have to save for myself and get myself together. But the blessing of that is not only, when I die, my daughter, kids after her and all that, they'll be fine. And even when my daughter gets 18, 20, 21, I can make sure she has a $200,000, $300,000 check to begin her life. But for me, I didn't get that. You know what I mean? And most people don't. You know what I mean? And because of that, I have to supplement the fact that I can't be ignorant to the fact that, hey, there may come a time where I lose a job, I get fired for a job, or I just reach a point or something happens health-wise, because we're all predicting that we're just going to be healthy. But we're predicting that something is going to interrupt to where you can't work. And if my lifestyle and my life is dependent on me, I need to have the resources behind me to be able to take care of things if I can't produce at that level.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you, because I'm thinking about the person who's sitting there and they're looking like at their check and they're hearing you and they're like, save. I'm barely
Right.
making ends meet. I'm
Yeah.
barely, paying the bill. How do you, or what do you do in your business to help them understand the importance of saving something? Because I also hear you saying a lot of times we're all striving to be millionaires, and maybe
Right.
that's not what we need to be for
That's a good
now.
goal to have, but I mean, you need to pay the bills. You need
Right.
to have a little extra in the month. Everything is a process. By the time most people who became millionaires, truthfully told, I mean, unless you were just that extremely nerdy person that was really watching things, most people, by the time they became millionaires, it was kind of one of them accident type things. Real estate had gone up, the stock market had went up, and they look at their cash, they're like, oh, we're actually millionaires. But our life isn't really no different than 7 years ago. But most people really have to solve the problem of how do I financially fix being above what traps people day to day. So a car repair can trap people. Anything that's probably $1,000 to $2,000 can probably sink most people. Hospital bill, just things that come up. You know what I mean? It's not to knock anybody, but you have to rise above. Hey, I can go in, pay this $1,000 and be done and move on. You go in, people don't like going to mechanics, people don't like going to dentists, doctors, whatever you got to do, but they're like, hey, yeah, I can fix this for you, but also you need to get this repaired. Well, I'm not going to do that today. Well, now you can do that today and then move on with your life. Is it
Yeah.
something you plan for? I went to get my car repaired. I went to get an oil change. That's what it was. $20-something oil change. And he was like, yeah, you definitely need new tires. In my head, I'm like, yeah, it's probably about time for me to get a new tire. But I spent less time thinking about the tires, and I hurried up and made that decision. I was on to thinking about, all right, something more impactful for me to move forward. But
Yeah.
it's not lost on me that I'm like, dude, I just spent $1,100, $800, whatever, to get 4 new tires, because that's even an accomplishment. If you're buying 4 new tires, if you can afford 4 new tires, that's a big deal. If you're not buying one tire or buying one used, because I've been through all that. Being able to buy 4 new tires is not something small. And so it's just making a different choice on your lifestyle, because a lot of people think I'm trying to preach frugality and you got to really cut down and you got to go for a long time. No, I'm trying to help you set up so that the things that you desire, I mean, you do have to be a little bit more mature, but the things that you desire, you can have without it having an impact to you.
Yeah.
Meaning, you know what I mean? Again, if you lose a job, does your life change? For most people, I would argue, yeah. You know what I mean? Because they're like, hey, man, I'm not going to do this. Technically, lose a job, I'm fine technically, but then the question is for how long? You know what I mean? And is the decision I'm making, you still should change decisions, because you're like, you want to be prepared and you want to see how things go, and you want to get, like you said, more information as your situation goes on. So it's really a thing of you do have to look at the month, and you have to look at what am I spending now. And what I'm trying to help people understand is, I don't want you to feel your way into, I feel like this is a lot. I feel like, no. We're looking at the numbers, and where my expertise come in. Yeah, I can look at your numbers. I can look at what you're paying for what service by whoever. And I can ask you a few questions and I'll know just off bet, oh, you're overpaying, because I've studied it so much. Like most people, I would argue 75 to 80% of people are overpaying for car insurance. Those are the car insurance, and typically probably credit are the first two categories that most people, if you can fix those, that will open up some cash flow for you to start to move the dial on things. So I hope that kind of makes a little bit of sense.
It's getting there. Yeah, it's getting there. I really, can we talk about credit for a minute? Because um because I just know a vast array of people who
Right.
are like, screw it, whatever happens, I got 7 years and it'll drop anyway, right? And then I have people I know who are just over panic about the slightest. Oh my gosh, like my credit went down like 2 points, and they're about to have a panic attack. And all the way to the people who are like, it was developed by the man, it's rooted in racism and all that kind of stuff. Like I gotta. So can we
It's
just
a system? Yeah, I get it.
system? And then also I've heard people say, well, credit is really negotiable, and you should think about credit the way that billionaires use credit, which is basically taking out debt, living off the debt, never touching money. It's just a whole lot of misinformation still, I think, around credit.
Or misunderstood information. So depending on how it's given to somebody.
Right.
So, I mean, with credit, yeah, I have over 800 score. But I only have one credit card. I still have a credit card that I got when nobody would give it to me. Capital One gave me one. But I learned so much from that credit card. Again, things that happened in COVID, people are like, oh man, these banks are doing it. But they've been doing that. They would have done it for you way before COVID happened. Lowering the interest rate, refunding interest, changing the terms of your loan. Depending on where you have credit, you look at what's the opportunity. So one thing that I try to explain to people is, if you're trying to build and you're trying to get your credit on track, the best thing you could do is go to a person that, if you find yourself in a spot, they're going to work with you so that your credit's not impacted. And that's the thing that people miss. So you're picking your loan, or I'm seeing people, you're picking your loan based off who's going to give me a rate, or for the most part, who's going to approve me. But that may not be the person that, should things go south, they're going to actually help you out.
Right.
Meaning, hey, we know you lost your job. This is the thing we can do. We can change the long term. We can make your payment low. You know what I mean? All this. These are things that actually can happen. But you're in the wrong institution. And then, if you lose a job, it's going to be hard for you to refinance, to move it to somebody else. So you need to do this ahead of time. You need to really prepare, because again, in the beginning, if you don't have good credit and you don't have savings, you need to prepare for, what if an emergency happens? What if I can't work? What can I do? And when I say that is, I'm often speaking about some sort of credit union, because what oftentimes they've done is, number one, if you have like a 680 at a credit union, you're treated like you got a 760, 800. But because you're very, very lendable too, you can get pretty much the highest from an auto loan perspective, and personal loan perspective, credit card, you could pretty much get the most competitive rate that's offered in the market. But when it comes to, hey, I can't make this payment, credit unions oftentimes have financial counselors. The financial counselors jump in and they can change your loan to, okay, what can you pay? I'm going to be on the payment plan, pay this. Or they have some sort of service. But what it does is, just like student loans, when you don't have an income, they're not going to charge you, you know what I mean, more, make you pay an exorbitant payment, but you still get payments that count towards positive pay history. That's what the credit union is going to do for you. They're going to try to protect you and help you protect your credit or put you in a position where you can protect your credit. You're going to have to pay something, but it's probably not going to be the same amount or vastly different from what you were paying, just to help you buy some time. And then as your situation gets better, then you can up it back up. But if you knew, okay, I can pay $50 a month. Okay, cool. I'm going to pay $50 a month, but I can keep my car. I need my car to get to work. I need my car to do some sort of side job. That at least help me get some income coming in, and I'm managing this situation.
Yeah.
Second thing is, people don't oftentimes know how deep this stuff with credit goes. So number one, there's like it's 11 different models now for credit. And depending on where you're at, it depends on what model they're using to why your score is going to look a certain way. So some of the newer models are not counting medical debt, and some of the newer models are not counting collection. But if they're doing a FICO or TransUnion 8 model, that's counting those things. And so you have to understand it's not just what score you pull. Hey, what model are you using? And then you have to see if when you go to a dealership or you go to someplace else, before they pull, what model are you using? Because then you'll know if all bad. If they're pulling two different models, you're about to get two different scores because the importance is placed different in how those models are working. And so it matters when you're on the line of trying to get that good solid interest rate. But ultimately, while everybody wants to strive for an 800, and this is somebody who has it, I realized a long time ago, well, now is if you got 760, you can do anything you would like. Wow. The only reason why you want an 800 is if you're trying to do a deal. And I keep going back to cars because that's where most people are doing things. But if you want somebody to make an exception for you, or because there are some places that just won't finance certain cars. If you're 800 plus, there are a lot of people who will just give you the money, no questions asked, and don't care what you spend it on because your credit is so good. That's what 800's done. 800 just gets you that exception. But as far as qualifying, getting the best terms, getting the best rates, 760 is going to get you, and that's going to change as of May this year because they're pricing in two different models for a home. But up until then, 740 was the number. Like you would have got the same thing as an 800. So people who have 800s, they'd be like, so what is 800 get? I'm like, I'm get you too much more than the 740. I mean, we appreciate your business, but depending on if you want, and again, if you want something that looks a little funny, that's a little bit what's considered riskier, that business that they wouldn't normally do, well, yeah, they're going to reserve that decision for like an 800 because they know you're going to pay regardless.
Yeah.
But if you're just doing your normal business, like most people, they're not even doing anything exceptional. They're just trying to buy a house, buy a car, maybe consolidate some debt, maybe even get a rental property, things like that. 740 is going to do you just fine the same way. And that's not that hard to get.
I hear you saying, okay, get real about where you are each month.
Yeah.
With what you need, what's going out versus what's coming in. And then you said save. And then you gave us the gem about like the credit. What is the average credit rate of people? Is it
now it's about 685. Out of all the scores, it's about 685.
685. And so then you really just get higher interest rates. If it's
I mean, interest rates are high now anyway, but you get lower interest rates the higher your credit goes.
Okay. So that kind of mentions the first steps that people can take. Another question, just to clarify, and I know everyone's situation is different, but I still imagine a naysayer sitting there saying, "Man, this can't happen for me. I can't save. I can't do it." What's the low, like, and I kind of get a sense of what your answer is going to be. But if somebody needed a number to save weekly, what would you recommend?
I mean, at first it's just whatever you can. So even if you can do $25, even if you can do 10, we all started. I mean, I started low. When I started investing, I was putting in $5.75 sometimes. You know what I mean? I was putting in what I could put in, but I was buying. The whole point is you're trying to design your mind to commit to saving. You have to commit to it. Much like working out, you have to commit to it. Working out is probably one of the hardest things to do because we all grew up with great metabolism. You didn't have to work out. You didn't have to build that into your system. And then you get to a screeching halt at 30, you're like, hey, man, blood pressure rising, weight getting out of control. You're like, hey, now you got to start this exercise. Well, when I'm finding time to do that? The same thing is with saving. You're initially, before you can get to save and invest in 2000, you need to build the importance every month, no matter what's going on. You're like, hey man, I'm saving something. And that money is untouched. I'm not going back to it. I'm not pulling back out. It's going to sit there. And if you put money in January, that money should still be sitting there come March, unless something crazy happened, but not typically. So you have to save whatever you can. And then as you're working on your bills, which is your lifestyle, bills and payments and all that, and you're able to open up more, or you get a raise, or something changes where you get a bonus, you can throw more to your savings. You want to have a goal. If you're single, you really do want to have an ultimate goal for an emergency fund at about $10,000. If you're married with 2 kids, if you're married, it really goes to about $15,000. And if you're married with 1 to 2 kids, really, you want to be at 20 to 25. And what that typically, data-wise, that'll typically cover you between 8 and 10 months. And should you lose an income, you build your emergency fund based off how long will it take for me to go get this same income again?
Okay. And so then so really it should be 2 savings accounts, one that's an emergency, and then one that is your longer term savings.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's 3, but 1 is more temporary. So what typically happens for most people is, if you paid for a car, if you paid off your car and you built your emergency fund probably at the same place, the next thing you're probably going to save for is a car to be purchased at a later date. That's typically what happens. Then once people get past that car to be purchased at a later date, then they start, okay, I'm going to invest, because even if you don't buy a car, now you probably essentially doubled your emergency fund. And so you're sitting on a lot of cash. So you're like, oh, I feel good about not saving money liquid because I can go afford X, Y, and Z. And then if a car does come up, I can still go pay for the thing in cash. But that's typically what you're trying to do. The first stages is really, you're trying to get your lifestyle under control. You're trying to make sure you're paying the fair cost for these insurance, cell phone. You're taking advantage of all discounts. If you're streaming, what streaming services am I using? Literally, you know what I mean? Not just having it. Can I buddy up with somebody? Can we trade? You know what I mean? All those different things. So you're doing all these different things with your budget. Then typically in that process, you start looking at your debt and you're like, okay, which ones are the big payments? Which ones can I begin to start to squash out? And you start working through it. But the good thing about most African Americans is they don't typically have a lot of debt because they can't qualify for it. And so they can really just start saving very, very quickly. And then if you start saving and then move on, like, okay, I drive, like me, my car is, what's this, 2023. So my car is 11 years old now. I probably got another 3 years out of it, but I've looked at my life and I've consistently paid off cars. I've usually kept them between 8 and 10 years. So the longer you keep your car, the more money you're able to save from your budget, because you're not spending it on a car. So the car is actually making you money paid off, so that you can save, really get ahead. So by the time you do need to drop some money, you're in a way different financial situation than you were when you bought the first car. And that's what you're trying to compare. How was I, you know what I mean? When I bought this car, I didn't have no savings. When I bought the car I'm in now, I had 20 grand saved. When I buy the next car, I got 100 grand saved. You know what I mean? With investments, it's a total different situation. But people don't think that $500-$600 could make a huge impact. It can, when you know how to use it. If you don't know how to use it, then you're not going to really see the value. And so I'm not trying to sell nobody on living a frugal life. I'm saying get the lifestyle you want, but do it at a lower cost. But we still got to save. And truth be told, if anybody took a pause on their life for 1, maybe 2 years, you will drastically change. If you moved all your energy to investing, you will drastically change your financial situation. Drastically. Even if you got debt.
Yeah. I think people, and again, and from an educator perspective, I remember when we did have in what course was that? I think we did take economics where we learned a couple of things. Like my brothers and my sister learned more because my older brother and sister learned more about managing money and writing checks and things like that, and being responsible, good stewards with money. By the time they came along with my age group, it wasn't something that we learned about, and it's even lesser now. Like I remember in the district I worked in, we actually had kids who would come to central office and ask for the design of these courses because they recognize like we don't know anything about money.
Yeah.
Do you offer things in your work? Is it just for just adults and families? Do you offer things for children as well?
I mean, the kid thing is a little bit easier,
Mm-hmm.
but mostly I've been trying to figure out, like, basically my kid is my test subject. How is she taking money? Obviously, she's in a, I hate to say it, she's in a privileged privileged scenario. Like, to me, like
Yeah.
he was born in January of 2021. I moved $8,000 to her name in stocks. Like she probably has a larger net worth than most people, especially people her age. You know what I mean? So it's her start is a little bit different. But I watch to see how she engages with certain bills. Does she likes the $100 bill more than a dollar? It's just one of those things of what is she identifying? She's not, she goes to the store with me, but she picks up the same thing out in the aisle, but I put it right back down. I'm not purchasing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Certain things. So she knows I'm not going to leave. If she's with me, I'm not about to leave with that item. So eventually she'll realize that it ain't even no point in picking up. Or it might give her joy to pick it up only to know, hey, I got to put it right back down.
Right.
But yeah, it's kids are a little bit different, but they're a lot easier only because they have just no base. They're a very, very clean slate. And once you can
Mm-hmm.
connect money and work with them, and once they get money and can start saying, okay, I want to save it, that's gonna be their ultimate good thing, especially if you're in like before 10. If you're
Yeah.
teenage, well, teenage is a little bit tougher because now they're used to Uber. Now they're used to a lot of different services where, oh, I need shoes, mom. Let me go get Jordans, or I need this, and money is just free flowing to them until you
Yeah.
put a hard stop on it. And there are many different videos all over the web where people are showing, hey, my kid's working. The kid's upset when they get their first check and they see
Yeah.
taxes taken out of it. So those are the things that kids don't quite, they're getting the initial shock of the culture and they're trying to figure out, well, how do I live off this? Because they are realizing at this rate, I'm not going to be able to afford the stuff that I want to do the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
So, and I want what I want. And that's very humbling.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a definite process to it. But all this, whatever money thing a person is gonna do, it all stems in you have to believe that this is true.
Yeah.
If I didn't believe saving and investing would get me to this net worth and that it would work, my initial thing, why would I do it? You have to
Right.
believe me. You have to believe you have to believe that, oh, he has money, or this is what people do. And the reason why you would say the misinformation is happening because number one, it's digestible, but people are giving it to them in a believable palette because
Yeah.
it's not believed that millionaires save and invest. Majority of them,
Yeah.
they're thinking most people who make multi millions, we're talking 1 to 10, most of
Yeah.
those people, they have some sort of business when the data supports that a lot of them people just bought a house, saved in their 401k.
Mm.
That's all they did. Entrepreneurs really start to go 10 million plus. But that first 1 to 10, that's typically person works a job, They've been putting money in their 401k. They pay for a house. They might have an extra house, maybe one, maybe two rental properties. Nothing too extravagant.
Yeah.
But they have that, and they just been saving and investing constantly for 30 years. And so it depends on when they started and depending on how much they're putting in based off their salary, they got 10 million. They got 4 million. They got 5 million.
Wow.